Hi there, welcome to Knitter Matters. Cheryl Lampard here. We're just coming in a moment or two early so that I can see if, make sure that we are going live at the right time. I'm just looking on my phone to see that. Yes, I can see that we're live. Can somebody just tell me that you can hear me? It'd be wonderful if you can let me know that. If not, I will just assume that you can until somebody notifies me otherwise. Anybody coming up to say that they can hear me? Anybody? Oh well, I'll just continue so that we are. Somebody's there. Wonderful. I like that. Otherwise, I'm talking to myself. So, Maria, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. That's wonderful. Welcome to Knitter Matters. Right, it is 7 o'clock now, so we will start. And somebody else has joined, Suzanne. Wonderful, thank you. That's really nice. Well, welcome indeed to Knitter Matters. This is season 2, episode 21. And I really appreciate you taking the time to join me, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay afterwards. I can see people are, Peggy Ann, hi, it's so nice of you to join us. That's lovely. I will try and say hello as we go along. If I miss you, please forgive me. I have asked the cameraman to, if there's any questions that you want to ask as we go along, to just let me know that. Otherwise, if I miss you, I promise to get back to you as soon as possible afterwards and answer any question. So I'm Cheryl Lampard. Throughout my life, I've had two passions, sewing and knitting in particular is the thing that's my therapy. I know that that's the case for many of you, and I just love it. I do it every day. And I also used to be the proud owner of a yarn store in Brighton, England, and one of the great joys of owning a yarn store, as I've said many times before, is that I got to teach people how to knit, and it's a joy to be teaching people all these years later. And if anything, it's even more of a joy because I get to reach out to more people, which is wonderful. So anyway, last episode was episode 20, was sort of a part 1 of an introduction to double knitting, that fascinating technique where you produce a 2-layer fabric. And Joanne has joined us. That's wonderful. Thank you. And Patricia, hi there. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. So double knitting is such a fascinating technique, and there's so much more about it. I thought we'd do a part 2. So I'm going to ask the camera now to go to the worktop, and we'll get started on what we're doing today. So just to recap, double knitting creates a 2-layer reversible fabric. This is what we did in the last episode. You've got a 2-layer fabric. The fabric is actually connected at the sides. It needs to be connected at the sides unless you're doing something the pattern says to leave an opening, but that's going to be pattern specific. There's a few other things as well, just to recap on, or in case you didn't see part 1. But do watch that, but to whet your appetite. So just to remind you, in double knitting, every stitch is part of a pair. It's a knit 1, purl 1 pair, and there's one of each colour, and you alternate across the row. You always need an even number of stitches. Now, when I say that, you can have 6 stitches, you can have 8, 10, 20, 30, however many you want. But you've got to have an even number of stitches, but you don't have to have an even number of pairs. So if you have 30 stitches for your pattern, you've got 15 pairs. That's just fine. You just can't have 15 and a half pairs. You can't have 31 stitches. So you need them in pairs. And both yarns travel together when you're knitting them, always. Although you're only ever working with one yarn and one colour at a time. Now, last week we did a cast on, which was this very pretty, I keep saying last week, I should say last episode, which is this very pretty sort of plaited cast on. It makes a very nice edge, and you're working with the 2 colours at the same time. I showed you how to do that one. I'm not going to show you how to do that one again this week, but I am going to show you another option. And I'm going to show you what's known as the alternating long tail cast on. And what you actually end up with is something like this, which is really pretty. And you see sort of the opposite colour on either side. It's slightly less square, if you will. This is a slightly wider cast on. So if you don't like that, you might prefer this one. I think this is really nice when you're doing patterned double knitting, because if you're using two colours, you want the two colours to be shown throughout the work. And I think this is a really pretty cast on. I'm going to show you how to do this right now. So what we do, I'm going to use the lilac and the white. I'm going to start. So what we do to start off with is we tie a knot. And this is not a slip knot in this case. We're always doing slip knots. This is not a slip knot. And if you know how to do a long tail cast on, I nearly did a slip knot then. It's just an ordinary knot. And the only purpose of this knot, once I can tie it, is to help you handle it. I'm just going to pull some yarn up here. So what we're doing here, normally in a long tail cast on, we would have a much longer tail and we'd use that end to do our work. Oh, hi Debbie, thanks for joining. What we're doing this time is I'm going to just insert my needle, if you will, under the knot. It's not on the needle, the needle is not through the knot, it's just literally held there. And the only reason it's there is just to make it easier to handle the two different yarns, to be honest. We're going to untie it once we've done a row or two. So you'd hold the yarn exactly as you would for a long tail cast on, like that. So you have one loop round the thumb, one round the forefinger. I'm going to get rid of that because I can see that it's in the view of the camera. So we're just holding this here, and we've got one yarn round my thumb, one yarn round the forefinger, and you're holding both lengths of yarn. Okay. Now, the only thing you need to think about is which colour you want to start off with in terms of your first row. So you need to think about that. So I want my light colour, I want the white to be the knit stitches on the first row. So I'm positioning the light yarn over my left thumb, the darker colour over the index finger. Your pattern will tell you which colour to use first if you're working from a pattern, but you can switch them over accordingly. So my yarn now is held like a slingshot, really, a catapult. So if I sort of start off with my needle in the middle position, the first thing I do is I'm going to cast on a knit I'll start that again. This might seem counterintuitive, but you'll see as it works on. So I'm going to move the needle under the loop on my left thumb. I'm going to then loop round, pick up that lilac loop. Okay. Now that is going to be a knit stitch on this row, but not yes, it's a knit stitch. So I'm going to cast on a purl stitch. Just bear with me. It'll make sense as we go along. Now I need to do a purl stitch. So what I do here, and that first stitch was exactly the same as you do with a one colour long tail cast on. The only difference here, to get my next stitch, I'm going to pick up that loop there. I'm going to sort of move the needle back to the middle point between the two yarns. I'm going to loop it under that and then loop it there. Okay, if I could just ask the camera to move up a little, as I don't have much room here. And we're going to do that several times so you can really see it, and I'm going to do it really slowly. And I'm going to put about 10 stitches on my needle, so that's 5 pairs. So we're going to start again. Left hand, I'm going to go under here and pull the lilac loop through, pull it up and tighten it. Then I'm going to go to that back loop on my forefinger, get back to the needle back to between the yarns, go under and through. I want alternating colours. Ignore this knot, it's coming off in a minute. So at the moment I've got lilac, white, lilac, white. That's exactly what we want. Again, under my left loop, right hand loop on the index finger, pull through and tighten. This is always the trickier one because this one we're doing all the time if you do a long tail. So take this slowly. So I'm going for that back loop, if you will, the one that's under this piece of yarn here. Pick that up, going between the two yarns, dip that needle down, under and through. Okay. Once more, left hand one, pulling the lilac loop through for my knit stitch, as it were. Picking up that loop there, middle, down, under, up. How many have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to do 2 more stitches. 1, 2. Oops, and then you might just need to tighten that up as you go. Sometimes that starts getting stretched out. Okay, in fact I'll do another 2 stitches so you can see. So you see you're getting alternate stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'll put 2 more on, or 1 more pair I should say. So under my thumb, through the lilac yarn, pull that up and tighten. I'm just going to give those 2 long tails a tug through that loop, into the middle, dip down, under. Okay, there we go. So that's how you would do an alternating 2 colour cast off. Now, with my stitches all on my needle now, so I've cast them on this way, I'm going to turn so I start my work. So let me grab another needle. Oh, I moved it. Can't remember where I moved it. Okay. So in the last time I showed you a way of getting the sides together by twisting the yarn, twisting the different colours together. Perfectly reasonable side, perfectly nice. That's doable. But if you don't like that, or you want something a bit different, here's another option. And I should say at this point, as I did last time, that there's many ways of doing all the things I'm going to show you. I'm just showing you what I think are sort of easiest for beginners, or the ones that I like. So what I'm going to show you today is this rather nice side edge that gives you almost a chain edge, but of both colours. So we had the cast on edge that you get with both colours. Now we've got the side edge that's going to give you this nice chain stitch, and you're going to see both colours coming through, okay, depending on which side you're looking at. So instead of twisting the stitches, and I think you might like this one, we're actually going to do something very simple, and it's the same. We do the same thing on every row. So we're going to purlwise, we're going to slip the first 2 stitches. We're going to do these stitches together, which is not what we normally do in the body of the knitting, but we do often do this for side stitches. So both my yarns are at the front. I'm slipping that purlwise. Now, like I said to you, when I started that cast on, I wanted my white yarn to be the first knit stitch. Oh, there's a few more people. Hi Suzanne, hi Lisa, hi Joanne, lovely to see you all. I wanted this to be my white yarn. I wanted to be the first stitch on my first row, as it were. So remember, we use the yarns, move them backwards and forwards together, but we knit the stitches separately. So whilst it was looking like I was casting on with a lilac stitch first, then a white, a lilac, which is exactly what I was doing. Once you turn the work, I've got my white stitch where I want it, okay? And indeed, this first pair which I've slipped, it's still the white stitch in front. So I'm going to knit that one. I bring my yarn, both yarns forward. I'm going to purl this one. I'm going to take both yarns back. I'm going to knit my white one with the white yarn. I'm going to bring both yarns forward. I'm going to knit my lilac one with my lilac yarn. Sorry, that's a purl. I should have said that. My first one was a knit, this was a purl. This is a knit, this is a purl. I know you could see that, but I didn't really, I said knit and I should have said purl. So knit with the white, with my yarns at back, bring the yarns forward, I'm purling with my lilac. The first couple of rows are always a bit fiddly. Bringing the yarns back, I'm going to knit now with the white yarn. I know I'm going to have a tension problem here because I'm pulling my needles quite a way apart, but to be honest, when you're beginning, don't worry about the tension. That comes with time with double knitting. So both my yarns are in front and I'm purling the lilac stitch. Bringing both my yarns to the back, I'm knitting with my white yarn. Now, I'm up to my last, oh, where's my knot? Okay, I've just done something I shouldn't have done there. Right, sorry. So I've knitted, I've finished my pair. I'm left at my last pair on the needle. I went to knit that because I was thinking this is a pair. I'm going to lose this knot in a minute so that it's not in our way. I'm actually at my last pair of stitches. So this is my first pair, my second, my third, my fourth. It was white, lilac, as you can see. So I'm at my last 2 stitches. What I do now, really simple, I knit them both together. I knit them both together. I'm going to do this whole row again. Now I can get rid of this pesky knot. I can untie that whenever I like or just leave it hanging there. But now I don't have to worry about it. I'm done with that. Let's do another row. So remember, on this technique, we're purling, we're slipping purlwise the first pair of stitches. Okay, so I'm slipping that purlwise. My yarn is in front as it would be if I was purling. Now I'm taking my yarn to the back. Now in this instance, of course, on this row, I'm knitting my lilac stitches. So I'm knitting, I'm bringing both forward, I'm purling my white stitches. I'm bringing both yarns back, I'm knitting my lilac, bringing my purl forward. You do get into a rhythm for this, and normally it's much easier to separate the yarns, but I'm sort of reaching out over the worktop so that you can really see, so it's a bit awkward. And remember, don't worry about tension to start off with. I like to knit towards the tips of the needles, and when you do that, your tension is better. Because I'm trying to show you as I go along, I'm stretching it out more, so the tension here is going to be a bit all over the place, but I'm really not worried about this. I want you to get the technique. So remember, the yarns are traveling together at the same time, and it's knit and purl in every row, but you're bringing the yarns backwards and forwards. Okay, so got to the end of the row now, and this last pair, and I'm just going to knit them. Okay, so as you can already see that sort of chain stitch effect happening. So I'm going to move this one out the way. Oh, darling, you said you love this. Very nice. Thank you so much. That's so nice to hear. So that's all you would do. I really like that chain stitch edge. So part of the fascination, of course, of double knitting is the reversible fabric that we create. And especially when a pattern is involved. It's a bit like terry toweling fabric. The design on the other side is reversed. So this simple checkerboard pattern, or this little square that we're going to do in a minute, it's reversed. Now, if you remember, I showed you that first sample. I said with double knitting you can pull it apart. At this point, you can still pull it apart, but you can't pull it apart where the stitches change colour. Where you change colour, those are now connected to each other. That's not something you can pull apart. And you know, I'm only doing this to demonstrate. There's no reason that you'd want to pull that apart. If you're doing something that requires an opening, then you need to work differently, because it's not then going to be two-coloured double knitting. There's no way it can be, because when you change the colour, those have to be connected. Anyhow, so, but how do we achieve this wonderful effect where we have the reversed out pattern? I'm going to show you how that's done. This is where this is not a piece of knitting that you're going to be doing with a glass of wine in hand. This is best reserved for when there's something you can really concentrate. I wouldn't do it after a long day or when you're really tired. Have a different project on the go for that. So what I've done here, I've done exactly the same as I just showed you, where I've done my slipped first pair of stitches at the start of a row, and knitted them together at the end of the row. But what we're going to do here is we're going to change colour in the middle so that you can see what we do. This is where you need to sort of think about it a bit. It's really good as a mind, getting your mind going. So I love it for that. And you do get into a rhythm. So let me just see how many stitches I've got here, because I want to place it reasonably equally. 1, 2, 3, yeah, okay. So as I showed you just now, I'm going to purl that first pair of stitches, take my yarn back. I'm going to knit now with my light colour yarn, and I'm going to bring my both yarns forward to do my purl with the darker colour. And as I said last week, you usually have a light and a dark colour, otherwise you're not going to get much contrast. As to what those colours are, that's entirely up to you. Right, so I've done, how many stitches? Okay, I've done 2, then I want to, right. So I'm now, with my 3 pairs of stitches in the middle, I'm going to change colour. So what I want now, I want to change to a blue, a darker colour for the next few stitches. So I'm not working in reverse, but I'm doing the reverse of the colours. And this first row is always trickier. Once you've done the first row, if it's a sort of a block pattern or you're doing the same colours for a few rows, then, or if that's what your chart shows, then it's sort of easier because you're just following the colour pattern. So in the past, we've always had alternate stitches on the needle. This is when you're going to get 2 of the same colour together. So now I want to change colour. I want to knit with the blue. It's still at the back. Now I've got to bring this forward because I'm going to purl with the grey. That's 1 set of stitches, remember. Because what I'm doing with my purl stitches, I'm making the outward, the back of my knitting, the back outward face of the knitting. I'm going to knit now with my blue, and I must remember to get this right while I'm talking. It's very easy to get it wrong. I'm going to purl with my light grey. I'm going to knit with my blue, and I'm going to purl with my light grey. This is really the only time that you're going to see 2 of the same colour together, as we are in just a moment, because now I need to go back to this colour, what I'm doing on this side. It's going to make sense in a minute when you see the next row. So now this is how we would be going on, and I can see I've got a few loose stitches below, but that's really the least of my problems. Don't worry about tension at this point. Just get used to doing the knitting. I promise you your tension will get better. And there is a way, when I do this myself, if I'm doing double knitting myself, I actually knit with 1 colour in one hand and 1 in the other, but that's just too much to worry about if you've not done that before at this point in time. We'll do that another time. So I'm at my last pair of stitches. I'm going to knit those together. Now I'm going to turn my work. And you can see where the change of pattern is because we've got this 2 of the same stitches together. So I'm going to do another row or 2. I slip that first pair of stitches purlwise, remember. Now this is the colour for the main part of this face of the knitting. So all is well so far. It's knitting in the darker colour, purling in the light colour. And very soon I'm coming up to where my colour change is going to be. And you get warning of it because there's going to be 2 colours together. So I've just done a light grey, now I've got another light grey. Ooh, what does that mean? Well, that means probably I've either made a mistake, and that's entirely possible, or this is where my colour changes. And this, I know, is where my colour changes. So I'm knitting now with the light grey. I'm bringing my yarns forward, and I'm purling with the darker colour. I am knitting with my light grey, and I am purling with my darker colour. I'm knitting with my light grey, and I am purling now with my Right, and we're back again to our, if you will, our normal knitting colours, or the knitting colours that we started off with. So I'm knitting the blue, purling the grey, knitting the blue, purling the grey, and knitting my last pair. So you can already see that pattern is forming. I'm going to do one more row so you can really see it, and then I'll show you another way of binding off. I'm slipping purlwise. You okay? Okay, sorry, cameraman was at an awkward angle. I just want to make sure he was okay. So again, I'm on my light grey side, so the knitting is exactly as it should be in terms of keeping that grey side grey. Now I'm changing colour. Now this is where, instead of knitting my greys, I'm knitting the blue, and I'm purling the greys. As I say, it's probably not something you need to do when you want to relax and have a glass of wine, because you do need to concentrate a bit, but it's a good thing if you're watching something and you're not particularly interested in, you can really concentrate on it then. Or if it's something on the TV with good dialogue and you don't have to watch the screen. Okay, so now I'm back to my, if I can just separate those, they're getting twisted. That's an inevitable part of double knitting. The yarns do get a bit twisted, but don't leave them too long to untwist them, otherwise you'll get them tightening up as you actually knit. Okay. And to my last pair, and I knit that. Okay, there you can see. You can really see that start to form now. That's exactly what I did on this one. It's that simple. So let me just show you another way to bind off. I showed you a way last week, which we bound off in sets of pairs. This is another way to bind off. So this is a little checkerboard pattern that I did here. And what I did here, I did a couple of rows here. I did a few rows before I started my checkerboard. Now I want to finish with the same amount of rows. So to do that, I've just worked along my row with the, if you will, my starting colour, my white. This is where, to do this technique, you need to put it on either double pointed needles, as I have here, or a circular needle. So all I'm going to do, I'm not going to turn the work. I've done my row here. As you can see, I've knitted the white and purled the lilacs. So my working yarn is at the end here. And I've just cut it off for ease, but don't cut it off until you've done it. So instead of turning my work, I just slide it to this end. And all I'm going to do here is I slip the first one, I slip my first one knitwise, then I slip my purl one purlwise, and I pass the stitches over. I slip that knitwise, I pass the purl, what would have been the purl stitch, over. I slip. So I'm slipping, instead of knitting them, I'm slipping them the direction that they would be. Slipping that purlwise, passing it over. Slipping that knitwise, passing it over. Split the yarn there, okay. Keep going. Now this is quite a good technique if you want to make sure that you're not tightening up your knitting. It'll help you retain the sort of the gauge that you were knitting at. So I'm just slipping the knits, passing them over. Slipping the purls purlwise, passing over, slipping the knits knitwise, in the usual way that you would do. I'm just not knitting anything, and it's not going to go anywhere. You get a really pretty finish. Nothing's going to unravel. Slip my purl stitches, pass that over, slip my knit stitches, pass that over. Sorry, there's a few more stitches on this one. Just bear with me. but you can see how that pattern is really forming quite nicely. So if you sort of want, you can never quite match the cast on because it's a different stitch. It's a different, but you can, what we're doing is matching the fact that you get that second colour coming through. And I get to my last one, I slip those both together and I pass that over. Then I just pull my yarn through and I would just tighten that off, finish that off, okay? But so if you want to finish off so that you cast on and you've got the second colour coming through on this side, this is the way to do a cast off so that it matches that, as it were. And again here, really pretty. So all the way around this little piece, we've got the two colours kind of showing, which I like. If you're going to do two colour knitting, I think you want both colours to show. Okay, so I'm going to ask the camera to move around so I can sign off and say goodbye. I hope you found that of interest. I just, the whole double knitting thing, I really, really like. So, as always, if you have any questions or comments, do put them in the thread below and I will answer them as soon as possible. And do let me know during the week if there's a technique that you'd like to see me do. Knit Matters is for you. So if you have something you'd like to see me do, please let me know and I'll include it in a future Knit Matters. So thank you for watching and I look forward to seeing you again for the next episode. And in the meantime, stay well, stay well, stay calm and stay knitting. It's been a long day. Bye for now. Bye-bye.